Welcome, goddesses and man gods, to the Modern Goddess Lifestyle channel where we share sacred wisdom through modern methods. I'm your hostess, Allie McPhee, a women's health educator and raw food chef who helps women balance their hormones through a divine feminine approach. I am so excited to share with you my interview with Jonas Ketterle, owner of Firefly Cacao. Jonas hosts cacao ceremonies, Brotherhood Circles, and supplies his ethically sourced cacao online for anyone wishing to host a cacao ceremony. We dive in deep, so feel free to make yourself an elixir or tea, sit back, and without further ado, I present to you my chat with Jonas. Welcome, everybody. I'm here with my friend Jonas Ketterle, and he is the owner of Firefly Cacao. And we had a chance to meet over the phone last spring, and I had such an amazing experience with him. His energy is profound. His heart chakra is wide open by the sacred use of cacao medicine and all that he offers to his tribe, and I could feel that stimulation. So I found him through a friend, and I've been getting cacao for him to bring into my ceremonies in the Midwest. And so he is here today. He's going to be sharing some sacred wisdom with us about the ancient medicinal properties of cacao. And we are just so happy to have him here. Thank you, Jonas. Love you.
Thank you, Allie. So happy to be here.
Yeah, so maybe as we get started, maybe we can just take a deep cleansing breath to kind of invoke the sacredness of this space and of this session. So let's take an inhale through the nose and exhale. Welcome, divine brother.
Thank you, sister.
Oh, so I want to dive into your story with cacao and your journey. But before we get into that, would you like to kind of share a little bit about cacao and how it's used as sacred plant medicine?
Ooh, that's such a big question. All day about that. Fundamentally, this is an ancient plant medicine. It's been around on the planet for 80 million years, and it's more complex than humans are genetically. So we don't normally think of trees this way, but this plant is really intelligent, and it really should be classified as a drug. We're fortunate that it's not. It has hundreds, if not thousands, of compounds that act on the human nervous system, on our body. It's really a very embodied medicine. That's one thing I love about it. If we think of caffeine as a nervous system stimulant, one of the primary active components of cacao, the theobromine, is a cardiac stimulant. And so it's really supporting us to be embodied in our lives, which if you think about how much emotional expression of ourselves is kind of been pent up or not permitted or welcomed in our society, kind of really truly embodying ourselves and having the support of the cacao is powerful healing work. And that's just one of many, many ways that we can work with it.
I know that I've been gravitated towards cacao for a long time, especially when I was going through my raw food chefing training. I stopped drinking caffeine and coffee, and I went to cacao, and I wouldn't say slightly, I would say that I abused it. I was adding it with lots of sugar. I was using it as a way to amp up my energy and just go, go, go. And so for me, speaking with you and just all the things that I've learned from you so far has really helped to rephrase my relationship with cacao and seeing it differently. And so I know that you say that the indigenous tribes, they sit with it like an elder and they sip it and they go deep within for inquiry. And that was something like a new perspective I've never heard. So
Totally, I can speak to that. Kind of our Western mindset is to consume things for our own personal benefit. And cacao, as this ancient sacred plant, and the way that indigenous folks approach their plant medicines is one with inquiry. They have no idea what's going to happen when they sit with cacao. It has, in many ways, unlimited healing potential. And so the more we control what our experience of ceremony looks like, the the less we can receive from it. But when we let go of that control and place trust in the plant medicine, and really allow her to work her magic, that's when we begin relating with the plant actually, because we're letting go of these particular assumptions about what it's going to do for us, and instead coming to it with gratitude, with intention, with curiosity. And that's what true relationships are based upon.
I love that.
And I guess I also felt called to say that, you know, for those of you just tuning into cacao and what is cacao, we're talking about drinks that are made largely unsweetened. You can add a little bit of sweetener, but this is basically pure cacao beans ground into a paste and mixed with water. And it's a drink that's not much more bitter than coffee, actually. It upends the Western notion that chocolate should be consumed sweet, which is what we've had from European history for hundreds of years, but actually its roots on the Latin American traditions has been to drink it unsweetened and perhaps spicy. And in this way, the medicinal properties of the cacao really come through in a whole different way than what I had experienced earlier in my life.
I love that. So Jonas, you lead cacao ceremonies. You make this delicious cacao. You live on the West Coast, right? Sebastopol, I think California it's called. Yeah. But as far as this journey that you're on with sharing this sacred medicine, how did you even get into this?
So I used to work in the tech industry. I was an engineer for a solar company, and kind of burnt out. Silicon Valley tech culture is pretty intense. You work really long hours, and I quit that job even though I was really passionate about it, and was traveling in Oaxaca, Mexico, where I met a woman named Maria who showed me traditional chocolate making techniques from the whole bean. Even though I'd eaten chocolate my whole life, I'd never thought about how chocolate was made. It always came off of the store shelves and was a packaged product. And to connect to the life behind it and to connect to the tradition behind it was such a profoundly meaningful experience. And the chocolate was so good. It was just had this freshness and aliveness that I had never encountered in an industrially made chocolate bar before. And something about that experience stuck with me, and I couldn't stop thinking about chocolate. I began making small batches of chocolate at home when I got back to the States, and a few years later decided to start Firefly Chocolate and Firefly Cacao.
Yeah, I love that. So I know we've talked previously, you said that you've actually traveled to some of these indigenous cultures and met where this cacao is grown. So can you tell me a little bit more about those experiences? I think we'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, the place that I have the most experience in is in southern Belize, working with a cooperative called Maya Mountain Cacao. They source their cacao from 300 indigenous farming families. They're Kichi and Mopan Maya farmers. And it's all smallholder farms. They typically work on 1 to 6 acres or so. So what's really cool about this cacao is that it's coming from a lot of families. It's not plantation grown, and it's coming with an understanding and respect for the local ecology. So think permaculture cacao growing, one of its finest examples, like the cacao forests that they grow in really are medicine cabinets. It's not just cacao growing there, but hundreds of edible and medicinal plants. Like, I was staggered by the volume of knowledge about the different plants and how they could be used. I mean, literally one of the farmers who shows me around his farm every year, like, it's like every few feet he'll pick up something else and be like, oh, try this. And, my wife uses this for a certain medicinal preparation, and you should use this if you have a cough. And this one, I didn't even know what it's good for, but somebody else in my village uses it and I bring it to them. So there's just such deep ecology happening, and you can't really leave that forest the same way. Like, something about coming back into the village even, which is super off-grid, like at the edge of our modern society, that feels so profoundly different from just being in that raw energy of the forest. So that's where this particular cacao from Belize comes from. like any indigenous village, they face enormous challenges right now, kind of preserving their ancient cultures, a lot more connection to dreams and listening to dreams for guidance and such things, and modern influences coming in. And it's quite apparent, and it's it's fascinating to see, and it's saddening to see. So definitely, by getting cacao from this region and being able to support the traditional livelihoods with some of the best cacao prices in the region, and by myself going and showing that I'm curious about and valuing their traditional indigenous knowledge, hoping to support them in that way, and hoping to next year bring folks down to Origin as well to share that experience.
Thank you for that.
It's to see the connection that these communities have to the land is amazing. Like one of the farmers, Eladio, he would share with me, like, come, let me show you more of my heart, as he guided me around the land. And the land was his heart. He felt such a deep connection to it. And I think that's just like such a beautiful way of seeing that relationship that we all can have with land and with the ecosystem around us. We're really a part of it.
That's incredible. Thank you for sharing that. I know for me, I've been traveling for a while, so I haven't had a garden, but when I did have a garden and being able to go out there and like plant the seeds, put them in my mouth, plant them in the earth, and then watch them grow and feel that energetic connection, it was very profound. And I do feel like we lose that a lot in our modern culture. And it's wonderful that you've actually been there and you've spent time with these people and seen how they grow and see their connection and really absorb that, so you can put that energy into your cacao, and then we can feel it too and remember these ways. It's like the codes that we can energetically remember. And the Belizean cacao was the one that I tried originally. When we had our ceremony back in Indianapolis, we had a Shiva Shakti Secrets of Sacred Sexuality ceremony with your cacao. And yeah, I really felt energetically loving and opening and connected to my tribe. Everyone was dancing at the end. We had kirtan music, so it was so nice. Which, yeah, I guess that would bring me into my next question for you about cacao ceremony. So would you like to explain a little bit about cacao ceremony, what it is, and then how you administer cacao ceremonies as well?
I just want to say first that I was so happy to hear you were putting on that event. That struck such a resonant chord with me, because I really enjoy sharing cacao in brotherhood circles, and to see it happening a lot in sisterhood circles, and to also see the two coming together to share cacaos. So, because it's a celebration of life. Like one of the transmissions I see coming through the cacao is how to thrive in our lives and in our relationships. Like those hundreds of plants that are all growing together with cacao on these farms are just a mirror of how the rainforest ecology works, and how all these species coexist and support each other. It's not this like competitive thing that is sometimes the narrative. There's a lot of symbiosis happening, and that the cacao picks up that energy and transmits it to us. And so I naturally see in cacao ceremony these coming together, these celebrations of life, dancing, just this celebration of connection. As far as cacao ceremony goes, it can look many, many different ways. I would say that like a fundamental tenet of cacao ceremony, you can do it on your own. You can do it in a group. I've done cacao ceremony. I do it on my own most days. I've done it with groups of over 100 people. And the fundamental tenet, though, is your own connection with the cacao and creating a relationship with the cacao, and not just gulping down the cup and being like, okay, now what? The cacao, unlike more psychoactive plant medicines, doesn't take you on a journey, but you can journey with it if you choose to. So it's about creating this intentionality of a container. I can't help but slow down when I hold a cup of cacao in my hands. And I think that in itself is such a valuable teaching, slowness in this time and age. And in that slowness, I can tune into both what I'm feeling in that moment. It just brings that presence in. I usually share gratitude with whoever I'm with, or just on my own. I'll review something that I'm grateful for that day, and then I will set an intention with the cacao. It can be multiple intentions. One of my favorite two-person rituals that I do is we prepare the cacao, and then as we sip the cacao back and forth after sharing gratitude, with each sip, one person will share an intention, and then the other person will listen, and then we'll both sip the cup of cacao, and then we'll trade. And we'll do that until we reach the bottom of our cups. So we can easily speak 5 or 10 intentions. You can do the same thing with gratitudes, and there's nothing wrong with sharing depth, going into these for minutes at a time. I find that's actually really deepened some of my relationships with close friends, is going into these intentions for days. Yeah, and intentionality is so powerful, and cacao as a medicine really carries it. I find it relieving to give my intention to the cup of cacao, because then I feel like I have this plant ally at my side, and I don't have to carry that intention on my own. I kind of share the responsibility, and I allow the cacao to work her magic to fulfilling those intentions. And sometimes if I don't know what to ask for, I ask for magic. And so kind of an open-ended prayer that's had all sorts of cool results. And that's really, one of the tenets to really making cacao ceremony work is full trust in the medicine. Often before I'll even begin sipping the cacao, I'll welcome the plant into my body. Just kind of speaking like, hi, Mama Cacao. I'm about to drink you. I'm about to welcome you into my body. You're so welcome here to bring your intelligence into my physical, emotional, spiritual being. And I'm really happy to receive you today. Some sort of just like welcoming, making my body a temple for this plant to work with. It's fundamental. It really encourages a shift, and it really helps drop me into that mindset of collaboration and co-creation, rather than consumption.
There's so much wisdom in what you just said, and even with what I do in coaching women on their hormones and nutrition, even sitting down before you eat a meal. I love how you said that before you take a sip, you always are brought down to the present moment and you become present with it. And I'm just thinking, even from the perspective of eating food, those are plants. They still have medicine for us, every nutrient, every mineral. And in our society, we're just so focused on what's the next thing? How do I get it? Let's go. I mean, this is a culture that's conditioned us, and taking time for these plants and really breathing and setting the intention and bringing your focus to that act of sipping the cacao or eating a meal or whatever it is you're doing. It's magical, that process. And I love how you brought up the intimacy that can be strengthened between people, the little activity you gave with what you did with you and your friend. That's beautiful. We're going to be doing some intimate practices at our next cacao ceremony. We got the Tanzanian cacao from you. I think that's the one we ordered next to try. Yeah, and we're going to be doing some tantric breathwork practices, potentially a puja, some kirtan, and really just opening the space for intimacy, because, again, going back to the way our culture is right now with this busy go, 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 sometimes just taking a moment to look deeply softly gaze into your beloved's eyes, or your mother, your father, your friend, or your children. It can be hard to do that when we're feeling super overwhelmed by life, and that vulnerability when you're looking into somebody else's eyes and just allowing them to be and see you and you see them. That can be pretty powerful. And I know with cacao, it can help to create a container for that experience of intimacy, how it releases the endorphins and helps you to feel just pleasant and lovely in your body. And so I just love everything that you expressed, and thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
You started speaking to some of the amazing molecules that are in cacao, and I thought I could speak to a few of those
Please.
because it helps us understand how it creates container and how it supports that deeper intimacy and such. Um, so cacao has norepinephrine, which is the joy molecule, and anandamide, which is the bliss molecule, phenylethylamine, which helps with like alertness and attention. Especially that one, I find it makes me more present in the moment. Sometimes I notice a shift in my visual field where I see more details, and I attribute that to just more presence. Serotonin is another one. It helps with the feeling of well-being and like stress resistance. And then also dopamine is another one, which is mostly around feelings of motivation and pleasure. So these are just like 5 of the molecules that are flooding our neurochemistry. Cacao also has the neuro reuptake inhibitors in it that um, keep those beneficial molecules around for longer. So you can kind of get the sense you start feeling good and you're more present. That's helping support this intimate connection. I also wanted to say that there's the cacao ceremony looks different every time, you know, like sometimes if I'm in a really challenged state, cacao will just help me operate at my baseline. I don't particularly feel ecstatic or great, but I manage to get through the day in a better way than I would before. You know, sometimes it'll bring me to tears. Sometimes I needed to cry, and it'll take me there. Um, Sorry, it's a little noise coming in through the windows. Can you still hear
Oh,
me?
I can hear that a little bit, but I can still hear you. Are they cutting the grass?
Okay. Uh, there we go.
Stellar.
What was I saying? Um, oh yeah, just the range of experience of cacao ceremony. I've definitely gotten messages where like, oh, the cacao didn't work. Sometimes cacao helps people fall asleep, and they're like, wait, I thought this was supposed to stimulate me, and it's like,
Mm.
you know, that's one possible effect. Um, and really, I've learned to trust that the wisdom of the plant gives me exactly what my heart needs when I relate with it, and that can look many, many different ways.
Mm.
Um, you also started speaking to breath work and dancing. So, you know, I'll often start with this intention and gratitude ritual. And then there's different ways that we can activate the cacao and go deeper into our experience. And so physical activity, moving all that energy from the cacao through our system has a powerful effect. Um, and likewise, breath work is really moving the energy of the cacao through our bodies. So I
Mm.
love that combination. I think that's a really effective tool. And the cacao experience lasts for a long time. So there's often you'll notice like an immediate effect. Sometimes I'll take just one sip and it'll reset me in some way. I'll be like, whoa, here it is. You know, and other times I won't notice as immediately. But the peak moment of cacao, I typically notice 2 to 3 hours in after drinking a cup. So
Mm.
all of a sudden I'll find myself in this flow state or having a really connected conversation or all of a sudden finding some deep insight into something I've been struggling with. That's the cacao at work. So I encourage people to just like keep a journal and stay observant throughout the day. Peak effect is 2 to 3 hours. It can act for as long as 6 to 8 hours afterwards. And so
Mm.
keeping that awareness that a plant medicine ceremony container has been opened when we um, bring the cacao into our bodies, and that it's a long one.
Yes, thank you for that reminder. And you had also mentioned earlier about your Brotherhood Circle. So, as the people who know me in Indianapolis in the Midwest area, I do a lot of women's circles, red tents, divine feminine, sacred work, as well as some of the Shiva Shakti. Um, but it was so interesting to hear about your brotherhood circles and the fact that you use cacao, but there's also some activities that you do that for me, I got really excited to hear about. You said at one point you guys had like a wrestling match as part of your brotherhood circle.
Yeah, this brotherhood circle that's recently come into my life has been one of the biggest blessings. It's been co-organized with a friend of mine. at his home in the East Bay, and we typically will build a fire in his garden and share cacao to start off the night. And so just by bringing in that element of fire creates such a powerful ritual. And we share cacao, kind of what I just described, and we'll go into a deep sharing space. And it's really powerful for brothers to be able to do that with each other across a whole range of topics. And we'll sometimes bring particular topics in to explore together and to deepen with. And usually we'll bring in some embodied element too around the fire. Like, we don't just sit all the time. Sometimes it feels really good to stand in a circle around the fire with our hands on each other's backs and to feel that support of the circle. It's a beautiful thing to be standing in a circle with brothers and all supporting each other and getting to know each other with a vulnerability that isn't common for men in our society. And then one thing that has always bothered me about a lot of men's circles is that they're not very embodied. And I think the cacao brings in that embodiment piece. And after we've been talking for about 2 hours, we transition indoors where we set up wrestling mats. We do wrestling, and it's amazing how good it feels. And it's amazing the kind of personal connection it builds. So this is when the cacao is peaking, or we're just like really connected. It's not about pinning each other to the ground or anything. It's just about testing our limits, exploring each other, each other's strength, each other's flexibility. And yeah, this is something about that's so invigorating and resetting that we always can't wait for the next one.
I bet. This is such sacred work that you're doing. I know for me, I grew up with brothers, and just the way that I was brought up, seeing like a family member who was a male cry wasn't too often a thing. And when I think about in our culture how men get together, it's usually over something like a sports game, and then they go to the bar and they're drinking beer and they're smacking each other in the back. And when you think about women coming together, when we get stressed, we come together and we emotionally support each other, and we allow ourselves to be vulnerable and cry and process. And maybe that's not always what the brothers need, but definitely having a safe space that they can come to and speak about what's going on in their life in a way that's non-judging, without having to like be this macho man or, hold up this armor. It sounds, what you're doing in your cacao ceremony sounds like it has a little bit of everything. It's that vulnerable space. It has the cacao ceremony and the brotherhood work, as well as, getting out the tension by playing with that masculine energy of the wrestling and connecting that way too. So I just love the mix of all of that is available. And thank you for doing this incredible work of the Brotherhood Circles. It's so needed right now. So yeah, I would love for you to be able to share your website in case people wanted to get ceremonial grade cacao from you. So
it's actually ceremonial-cacao.com, and cacao is spelled CACAO.
Nice.
And yeah, we ship cacao out every week. Try to offer the best service that we can and get you this medicine when you need it, especially sometimes we forget to get cacao before a ceremony, so we specialize in getting people fast. Or we, by accident, ate it all before the ceremony.
Yeah.
So, we have three different single origins and 3 different blends that are all really fun to work with. Especially the blends. We have one with 14 medicinal mushrooms in it.
Yeah, I've tried that one too. It's so good.
We have one with whole roses from Morocco in it, which kind of acts as like a double heart medicine, because rose is really high frequency and healing for the heart as well. And then one with spices that's kind of very traditional Central American style, and the spices also accelerate and deepen the effect of the cacao.
Is that the chai spice blend one?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, I want to try that one. That one looks great. And I can totally resonate with what you're saying about accidentally eating all the cacao before the ceremony. We were talking before this recording that for this next ceremony that we're having in Indianapolis, it's
actually October 13th.
If anyone would like to join. I had my friend Angie order the cacao to her house, so I'm not nibbling on the cacao a month ahead. Suddenly it's all gone because it's definitely tempting, and I love chocolate, and I even love the bitterness of it. I think it's for me, it's a magic in savoring that flavor and tasting its true essence. Yeah. And also you have recipe formulas on your website too. So if anyone wanted to blend the cacao, the proportions are on there, so it can help them.
Yeah, and if you have any questions about preparing cacao, there's a contact form on the website. I'm happy to help and make suggestions. There's so many ways to prepare it, from just hot water and cacao to using a nut milk or to using an herbal tea with the cacao. Like, if you want a really energizing combination, mate and cacao is amazing.
Ooh.
Sometimes if I'm wanting the support, nettle tea in my cacao is really lovely. So there's many variations. And if your body prefers it with a little bit of sweetener, I'm all about drinking and consuming things that feel good to your body. So if it's too bitter, by all means add a little bit of sweetener, and that'll you'll still deepen with the cacao in that way. I think, yeah, it's not an immediate jump to go from our Western upbringing that chocolate.
Milky Ways and Snickers.
Exactly. It's like, wait, what? It took me a little while to drink, in general, to have less sugar in my diet. And chocolate is such a neat area to explore that in.
Yeah, for ladies watching, I have a recipe on my website, my hormone health cooking blog. I believe it's called Sensual Bliss Cacao Elixir. Yeah, and I suggest using the Firefly cacao in it, and there's a date blended and some other womb herbs. So yeah, definitely different ways to prepare it. If you don't want to do the bitterness, you can definitely add, like Jonas was saying, the honey, stevia, dates. You can blend it in a blender. We can also find you on Instagram, Cacao Ceremony, correct?
Exactly.
Yeah. Are you on Facebook too?
We are on Facebook, Firefly Cacao, and Firefly Chocolate too is my chocolate bar line. We make coconut sugar sweetened bars, which are 5%, so it's just a little bit of smidget of sugar to balance the cacao. And we have all sorts of good flavors like wild berry and almond sea salt. So great way to have cacao on the go. I actually started Ceremonies just using the bars I made. That's how I first got into cacao ceremony. And then it was only later on that I discovered drinking chocolate.
I love that. So you actually do retreats though too. I saw at one point you were leading a cacao ceremony facilitator retreat. Are you still doing those?
Just beginning to lean into that offering. That one had to be postponed a little bit because so much else was going on. But this fall, I guess, I'm doing a series of place-based cacao ceremonies in Sonoma County, where we're exploring the 4 different elements in connection to different locations in our local wildlands as a way of deepening relationship to place. So I'm really excited for that right now, and we'll probably offer more retreat-like things in the coming year.
Stellar. I want to come. Oh, well, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. I felt from the moment we started talking back in the spring that you were this medicine man giving me a blessing way to share this ceremonial plant with my community. And I just felt so comfortable, and I'm honored to be able to speak with you today and allow a space for your wisdom to just flow through to assist everyone's journey on their cacao journey. So thank you, Jonas. Is there anything else you would like to share?
Thank you, Ellie. I think we covered a wide range of topics, and we could keep going about cacao easily for days. But I just want to reflect back to you that it's really inspiring and supportive for me to connect with your enthusiasm about cacao and your community. So this is feeding a lot back into my day.
We love you. Awesome. Wow. Thank you so much. And I guess maybe we'll just take another breath to kind of close this out. So Another inhale through the nose. Exhale. Thank you for this sacred work.
Blessings, family.
Blessings, everybody.